For the last year, our group had set a goal of conquering the Trans-Taiga Road, which is one of the most remote roads in North America. The road winds through Quebec and was built out of coarse gravel to allow dam and hydroelectric workers to access the remote dams scattered throughout the territory. Once you reach the top, which ends on the Hudson Bay, you'll be about 462 miles from the nearest town, meaning you have to have enough gas, spare parts, and potentially tires to complete the journey or risk leaving your vehicle on the side of the road or paying thousands to get parts flown in or your vehicle towed out. Unfortunately though, we were stopped by the terrible forest fires that tore through that area. More than 71,000 acres, about 5% of all the forests in Canada, have burned to date, and the 2023 fires were the worst in their recorded history. Just 1 month before we planned to head north to Canada in July 2023, we had to make a decision. Do we abandon the whole trip? Do we try to come up with a backup with little time to plan? Or do we just take a shorter trip to someplace we've already been, like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Our group of 8 rigs decided to split up. Half the group planned to overland the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, with the other 4 of us, myself included, decided just a few weeks before our planned date of departure for Canada to head to Wyoming to try out the backcountry discovery route that was just created in May of 2022. This is part 1 of that epic trip.
Sandstorm, I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me, loosening my grip.
For me, the trip started with about a 12-hour day of driving. The family and I had been on summer break in Tennessee, so we had already driven 6 hours back to southern Indiana where my truck was all packed and waiting. Then I hopped in the rig and headed for Davenport, Iowa to meet up with the rest of the group. Our vehicle breakdown was a pretty interesting one, with Scott and his son Ken in their Ford Ranger Tremor hauling an overlanding trailer, Patrick in his heavily modified Subaru Crosstrek, me in my practically brand new 2023 Frontier with just 2,500 miles on it before I left for this trip, and then Hunter and his wife and baby in his Ram 2500 on 40s. We stayed the first night in a hotel because we were still about 15 or 16 hours away from the start of the BDR. Since it was pretty much our last night in civilization, we went out to dinner at a local brewery and burger place, which was a great way to kick off the trip. The next morning, we woke up early, prepared to put down some miles. We grabbed a decent breakfast at the hotel and then got on the road. The plan was to get as far west as possible. We left Davenport to head towards Crooks, Colorado, which was our first camp spot of the trip and a good place to kick off the following morning, heading towards the beginning of the Wyoming BDR. When it got to be lunchtime, we decided that we needed to take a little break. We'd been on the road for quite a while, and everybody wanted to grab a bite to eat. So we started to make some sandwiches, got the kids out of the car, kind of let them relax a little bit, and we found this little park that was pretty fun. Now here you're going to see Ken, Scott's child, going down this pretty awesome zip line, and then I decided maybe I should do that thing, and here's what that looked like. Kind of hard to hold the camera. Now I can know. Not when I jam into the ground. All right. Oh god. Think skinny. Ah! Got all the bugs. After after this brief little stop, we decided to get back on the road to keep heading towards Colorado. But since we were still 6 to 8 hours away, we decided to just get closer and find a camp spot for the night. However, this is where we ran into a problem. If you're not familiar with Overlander, it's a fantastic app that gives you some options to find basically user-reported campsites. However, the downside to that is sometimes it doesn't work out the way you think it will. So this is where Overlander sent us the second time for supposedly dispersed camping, but these are all just houses, which is weird. Alright guys, so it's the end of day 2. We've been in the car for about 12 hours now. We started at about 7:30 this morning. It's about 7:10. That's also Mountain Standard Time, so we've lost another hour. We've lost 2 hours since I left home, so technically it's 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock back in Indiana where I'm from. But we're using the Overlander app, which of course, you know, is sort of crowdsourced and stuff, so you have to deal with that, figure that stuff out. The first site that we went to, turns out it was all private property. It was on some water, it was kind of pretty, but there were a bunch of tires hung up and signs hung up that said private, no trespassing. So now we had to leave that campsite and we are trying another one. There is one more that was about 6 miles away on Overlander, so we're gonna give that a shot. It looks like it might be part of a state forest, state park, something like that. But it is hopefully a real campsite and one that we can actually camp in. So we're gonna go give that a shot now. So this is where we are currently after 2 spots that didn't work out from Overlander. We are by the highway near a McDonald's in a parking lot of an abandoned gas station. And Scott is cooking us dinner. It's gonna be magnificent. I'm excited. Well, unlike a lot of overlanding videos, not everything works out perfectly every time, so we ended up in this parking lot, we ate dinner, and then we did find a spot that night, and I'm going to show you that now. Our plan originally was to hit the top part of the Wyoming BDR, but at the last second we decided to start at the bottom and work our way up. So that first night we ended up in Crooks, Colorado. We hadn't been to this campsite before, so we didn't know what to expect. Unfortunately, by the time we got in, it was pretty late, and the bugs were extremely thick, so even turning on a light to try and set up camp was nearly impossible. All right, so we just pulled up to our campsite in Colorado, and this is within minutes of me turning on my lights. Like, literally a minute of the lights being on. Look at this. Wow. Look at that. So after surviving the onslaught of bugs, we woke up the next morning ready to get out of there. But with the rising of a beautiful sun, we realized that the bugs from the night before were, for the most part, gone. So we took our time a little bit and enjoyed the scenery. As we got closer and closer to Wyoming, the weather changed a bunch and we had to go through some interesting stuff, but then things got exciting. All right guys, so I'm gonna see if I can capture this for you. As a Midwestern boy coming out west, I've never seen anything like this before, but if you pay really close attention there on the horizon, you can sort of see like the ghost or the like outline of mountains. So we're in Colorado, we're heading up towards Wyoming right now. Really, really cool, super neat thing to see for the first time. So I wanted to try and capture it for you if I could, but look over there. If you can see through the bugs on the windshield, because there are a lot of bugs here too, but man, look at that. It's so cool. But if you think that's cool, just look at what happened next. Alright guys, well I am next to a river in Colorado. We just went up through this beautiful mountain pass and it is gorgeous. We went up 34 from Loveland and we went into Estes a little bit. It was crazy busy. It's July 4th and both the national park roads required reservations to get through, so now we've come back down to the same beautiful spot and we're just going to hang out, eat some lunch here, and then find another way around the mountain. But after all the amazing mountain sights, we decided to get to camp a little bit early, just outside of Bags, so that the next morning we could wake up and start leg one of the Wyoming BDR. Our campsite that night ended up being at about 9,500 feet in elevation, and as a result, Scott and Hunter got super sick with altitude sickness. Luckily, I avoided that, so did Patrick. The rest of us were okay, but we had a beautiful campsite that we actually had to wheel through a little bit of mud to get to, so that was pretty cool. And we couldn't have asked for a cooler site to sort of kick off our first official Wyoming camping spot. Alright guys, so we just got to our first Wyoming camp. So this is July 4th. The new tent performing admirably. It was comfortable last night. We've got some running water back here behind us, which is beautiful. Some nice woods, trees over here. So it's a really pretty nice site. Only bad thing is it is looking like rain right now. It's kind of sprinkling a little bit right now, which is a little less than desirable, so hopefully that clears up a little bit. But overall, this site is beautiful. I'm super excited to sleep by running water tonight. That'll either be a really good thing because it'll help me sleep, or it'll be a really bad thing because it'll make me have to pee. So I guess we'll find out. I'll tell you in the morning. Again, it's been great and looking forward to a good night's sleep by this creek, and we'll get back with you tomorrow. The next day we woke up ready to take on the BDR. This would be our first day actually getting into Bags and going onto the route that is the BDR. Side note, the creek did make me have to pee a lot, so pros and cons. But then we started to get on the road and we went through one of my favorite sites that we saw on this trip, and that was Medicine Bow National Forest. As you'll see here, it was just beautiful. There is snow everywhere, and this is in the middle of July, and then the view of the mountain was just breathtaking. So I hope you enjoy it. After Medicine Bow, we were about 30 miles from the beginning of the Wyoming BDR, so we hit the road and headed that direction. One of the things that really caught my attention was just how blue and big the skies are here. It's kind of incredible. Along the way, there are a ton of scenic overlooks. Between the normal beautiful sights of the trails and these periodic stops at overlooks, there is so much to see along this trail. Despite the beautiful views, there was one thing that we hadn't counted on, and that was feet and feet of snow in the middle of July. We came across this hard trail and we tried to take the hard trail, but it was about waist-high snow, so there wasn't really any way that we were going to get through it without a lot of work and delay. So this is the expert part of the trail, and we just hit a lot of snow, like a lot of snow. So we could go through it, but should we go through it? So we just went up the expert section of this first section of the Wyoming BDR. So could we get through it? Sure, if we wanted to spend hours winching and pulling each other out and stuff. Again, there wasn't really anything challenging about that route aside from some downed trees you had to skirt a little bit. But it was a lot of fun. It was neat to see all the snow in July for me. So that was cool. But yeah, if you want to go up there, nothing too challenging that we saw, but be aware that there might be, even in July, super high, super tall, deep snow. So the next part of the first section of the BDR becomes kind of a pretty rocky area. We just went through a section that had a sign up that said something about the Chippewa blowdown. So according to the internet, back in September of 2020, they experienced a massive wind event with over 60-mile-per-hour winds, which caused the downing of hundreds of trees. Some of those trees even fell on a lodge in the area and forced it to be closed, and it took a couple weeks for them to clear the trails enough for people to even be able to pass again. And one thing I want to point out is just how fast the terrain changes here. 1 minute you're in a pine forest, the next you're on the bluff of a ridge line looking around you and you can just see for miles. The sky is humongous and extremely blue. It was amazing how much the terrain changed on this trip, and you're going to see it throughout this series. There are just an amazing number of things to see on the Wyoming BDR. Also, this is one of the most remote BDRs, so in most of these instances, the video that I've got here, we are, 10, 20, 30, 40 miles from the nearest town, and so you don't see people. It is extremely interesting and fascinating to be out that far and just not seeing signs of humanity at all aside from the road. All right, guys, we currently just took a break. We came down from these mountains back here. We were kind of started over there, followed them around, went down into a gully valley over here, and then back up this side, and then over through here. I think we were up a little over 10,000 feet for a second, so I'm a little out of breath, sorry. But then we just came down this road, and this all opened up, and we were like, let's take a break for a second and just kind of look around. So I just want to show you guys the view where we're at right now. So again, came from there, going the opposite direction. We're headed this way. So we've literally just been following the spine of the mountains around and changing elevations pretty drastically the whole time. And now we just got here and we're going down this way, and then eventually we're going to hit Centennial, which is a little small town. Probably get some gas there because a lot of us are starting to run low. As you can see, Scott's put some gas in his truck right now. But yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. So if you're from out west, you'll laugh at me, that's fine. But being from the Midwest, this is just, I feel like I'm standing in the middle of my state and I can see the entire state. It's so massive. And you can just see for so far. It's really fascinating. Pretty cool. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are a lot of cows in Wyoming. So if you're taking the BDR, you are going to see cow after cow after cow. You're going to have to stop for what we called Wyoming traffic jams, which were cows over the road. If you're lucky, you'll also see some antelopes, and we got to see quite a few of those as well. I'm going to give you a little bit more of an idea of how beautiful it is out here as we head towards our stop for lunch. Now, eventually we did stop for lunch at a place called the Mangy Moose. This place was pretty awesome. They had games that you could play. It was a bar, so you could get a drink if you wanted, and their food was not too bad. So that was a nice little stop for lunch before we continued the drive to try and get close to Centennial, Wyoming, which is the end of Section 1 of the Wyoming BDR. All right, guys, so we just got to the end of the first part of the BDR. We're just a few miles short of Centennial, but we just saw this beautiful spot, and it's so nice and pretty in here. We were kind of worried once we hit Centennial that it may, for a little while, we may have to go 20, 30, 50, 60 minutes past the town to find another dispersed spot. So again, we're just in this beautiful pine sort of forest. Tomorrow morning, we will go that way behind me to get to Centennial. But again, for tonight, we're here. And so I just wanted to take you through a quick little walkthrough of this campsite because it's actually really cool and really nice, and we're all very excited. So if you have 2 to 5 rigs, this is probably a good spot. And again, it's just shy of Centennial on the Wyoming BDR. So again, without giving out specific instructions, if you're on the BDR and exploring, you will see this site. So let's take you for a quick walkthrough. All right, so we came down this road right here, and as we are coming down the road, we saw this sort of pull off over here to the right, and we're like, what's that? And then we went past it to right here, and we kind of looked back in here, and with the trucks here, it's a little bit hard to see now, but as you look back in here, there's like a wooden bench that someone's made, which I'll show you in a second, and a really nice fire ring surrounded with a bunch of rocks. So we saw that, and we were like, hey, this would be a great spot to sort of camp for the 4 of our rigs. There is also another bigger spot kind of in a field right down there behind this spot. So actually a couple of our guys pulled in down there and then sort of backed up into camp. So again, I'm just going to kind of walk you through this really quick, but we pulled in here, Patrick here with his Subaru threw his Gazelle up over there. So if you're a ground tent camper, there's a nice flat spot over there. Over here, I just literally pulled my truck straight in. It's really level, threw up the rooftop tent, plenty of room for the ladder and everything. And then I threw up my shower tent / bathroom tent back here, a little bit away with a little bit of privacy. And I need to move my solar shower because it's not in the sun. So there is sort of the shower area. And again, there's tons of room back in here. So if you wanted to be a little creative, or if you had ground tents and stuff, you could put stuff, over there. There's quite a few places for it. Now, another interesting thing is there's this sort of old building back here. I'll show you this really quick, because it is a weird dual toilet. So when we came back here to see what this was, someone has a tarp up on it, but it also has dual croppers, which is very strange. We will not be using those, but they do exist. And then over here, we've got this bench that somebody made that's pretty awesome, and the fire pit. And then, like I mentioned, these guys kind of backed in from this field. What's up, Ken? All right, but there's the fire pit. Hi, Ivory. And there's Ken. But you can see there's a big open field over here, so there's tons of space if you have a bigger crew. And there's actually another fire pit down in there. So it's kind of pretty here. It is a little buggy. So just FYI, there have been some mosquitoes and stuff, so we did have to spray some bug spray around. But other than that, really nice little spot. After successfully completing the first section of the BDR, we all woke up to a beautiful sunrise. The views in Wyoming are really spectacular, and every day we saw something new and more beautiful than the day before. We got straight into breakfast, and Scott, who is our camp chef, did a fantastic job whipping up some delicious breakfast sandwiches. All right, so it is Section 2 of the Wyoming BDR, day 5 of the total trip, but day 2 on the BDR. We just rolled through Centennial, which is the nearest town. It's kind of the ending point for the first section of the Wyoming BDR. Cool little town. We stopped at a place called the Friendly Store. It's like a gas station and a little grocery store. They don't have a ton of stuff, but they have some pretty cool stuff. And the lady there was super knowledgeable, super nice. Told us about a big fire we went through yesterday through a giant, it sounded like it was like a 180-acre fire that happened a few years ago. Also, quick update on how the team is doing. So there are 4 of us total. There's Patrick, who is in the Subaru. Then generally following him is the Ford Ranger Tremor with the trailer, which is really cool. That's Scott. He was making breakfast for everyone this morning and really sliced his finger bad. So a little bit of help from us to hold the gauze and stuff for him. We were able to get it sort of bandaged up, but after about 3-4 hours, it was still pouring blood. We just could not get it to stop. So he is on his way back out to Laramie to go to an urgent care to get some stitches to get that fixed. And then he's going to try and meet up with us later today on the trail. And then behind me is the big Moose is what he calls his truck. So then that is Hunter from Rebel Outdoors and his wife Caitlin and their adorable baby Ivory, who I think was in some of my video from last night. But man, she's just so cute. Super well-behaved, cute little baby that has done great on this trip. I mean, hours and hours in the car, and she's just been a trooper. So anyway, so Hunter is back there, but he's also under the weather. So he's not feeling great either. He has said multiple times that he was sitting around the fire last night covered in blankets, shivering. So he has some sort of a bug or a cold or something, but he's soldiering on for right now too. But Patrick and I are the only 2 that are really actually about at 100%. So hopefully we'll be back to full strength by end of the day today, but we're going to keep driving. All right, guys, so we are on a pretty high up, 8,500, 9,000 feet above sea level elevation right now. And I mean, hundreds of feet drop off, thousands of feet drop off probably to the bottom if you get past all the trees, but just extreme drop offs and stuff. And we were just talking about, how interesting, it's super fun to do these in your, these trails and these, backcountry discovery routes and stuff in your car. But we just came by a sign that said that this road that we're on right now is a wagon trail. So really makes you think about hundreds of years ago, people, doing this same thing, not with air conditioning, not with CarPlay, not with, all these amenities and a fridge and cooler and all that stuff, but walking on foot or riding in a wagon with a couple other people and hopefully enough supplies on your back or the ability to hunt and fish and get what you need to continue this journey, right? So just really interesting piece of history that this was, a lot of this trail was used by wagons and stuff. So something to think about for sure. As we continued through Section 2 of the BDR, a recurring theme of wildly varied terrain changes came up. The longer we spent exploring Wyoming, the more varied and beautiful the terrain became. From flat, packed dirt roads, to twisty mountain passes, to beautiful pine forests, every bit was a visual treat. What we didn't realize was that we were about to run into some terrain that would totally stop us. So we just drove up maybe 10-ish miles on this Forest Service road, and we just came to this. This is the road. Patrick's walking it right now, but there's still, this snow right here is up to about my waist. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, this looks like I'm going to be going first on this one.
Yeah, you're going to have to push this down a little bit. It looks like it's mostly off the road. So as long as we don't get up there and then it's all the way across the road, we should be able to do it. Should be fun.
Yeah.
And then like
Maybe back up and just nudge. Yeah.
Like just push it.
Maybe that won't break down. I mean, we could shovel it. It's gonna be some work, but all right, guys, so you can see behind me here, there's big, huge, I mean, this is a ton of snow. So he just tried to put his 10,000 pound Ram 2500 across it, and you can see tire tracks. He just started to climb it. Then we've got a Subaru with a little bit of a lift, and then my, 2-inch lifted but stock tired Frontier. So we're thinking if we just take a little chunk out of the top here, maybe he can crush down through it and clear a path. So we're kind of hoping to punch the Ram through here, and then once we're through, then the rest of the vehicles can get through. So we'll see how it goes. So we started to dig our way through that last bank of snow. And then when we got up to this one, it didn't look too bad, but then once you actually go up on it, it continues another 40 feet or so that direction. So kind of feels like we might be able to drive up on it, but then if we fall through, then we're just going to be in hours of recovery. And then we flew the drone up ahead, and out in front of this, there's even more snow, even deeper snow, and even longer snow. So it seems like, if you're a bike, this may be passable, but for vehicles, it's kind of unpassable. And it's July 6th, so there's no better time to do it. But I think they had a pretty bad winter last winter and got quite a bit of snow. I mean, you can see it on the mountaintops. There's snow everywhere up here. So it's about 60 degrees. It's July 6th, and there are, 7-8 feet snowbanks that go for 50 feet. So it looks like we're going to have to turn around and go back. But it was a worthwhile endeavor. We tried. So we're going to have to find a bypass for this.
Here's the thing about bypasses, though. Sometimes they're more fun than the original trail you plan to take. As we continued through Section 2 of the BDR, the trail got rockier and more rough the further we went. Our vehicles were taking a beating, and this was only day 2. Eventually, we came across another group of overlanders going the opposite direction. This was the first time we'd seen anyone on 4 wheels in the last 2 days, and it gave us a chance to ask about the rest of the BDR. This other group had started at the top and worked their way south. They advised us to avoid the last couple of sections through the Bighorn Mountains because they had experienced 5 times the normal rainfall, and they said it was a mud pit. They mentioned that they had been stuck multiple times all the way up to their frames and had spent hours on recoveries. We said thanks and continued on. The end of Section 2 runs through the town of Elk Mountain. We decided to take a side road up to the top of the mountain that lends its name to that town. At more than 11,150 feet, it was quite a sight, and the trail up and back down felt appropriately sketchy as well.
Alright guys, so we're still on day 2 of being on the BDR, but we've finished the second section. There were some challenging parts to it, just mainly a lot of bumpy stuff, really kind of uncomfortable roads to drive on, but not too bad. Not my favorite thing ever, but it was still cool. There was some rocky stuff you had to climb over, which was a lot of fun in the new truck. So we had started the third section of the BDR when we realized that we are really far from the next spot where there's going to be camping. So we had a little powwow. We could go 20 minutes back. So just FYI, if you are watching this video because you want to know about the BDR, you're thinking of running the BDR, Section 2 ends in Elk Mountain. Elk Mountain itself is just a little teeny tiny town with almost nothing in it. Actually, the gas wasn't even in it. We had to go a few miles up to Highway 80 to fill up with gas. What's interesting is maybe 10 or 12 miles before Elk Mountain, there's camping. There's beautiful camping down along a creek. There's just dispersed stuff all along the road. So keep your eyes open. If you would rather stop before Elk Mountain, that's a good spot to stop. Or again, now we have started Section 3. It was about 4:30 when we started this. It's looking like about 73 miles to the next sort of dispersed area. And that one, it sounds like it's going to be like a windy hilltop. So we'll see how that goes tonight. Might be a little bit windy, might not be the best campsite that we've had this whole trip, but it should be cool. I'm sure it's probably beautiful, and with the wind, hopefully that will take care of the bugs. So anyways, again, if you are running this and you get to the end of Section 2, you might want to stop 10-15 miles before Elk Mountain and find some dispersed camping there, or you may want to continue on for a couple hours. Make sure you have enough time to continue on for a couple hours past Elk Mountain if you want to camp on Section 3.
Section 3 starts as mostly sagebrush-filled prairie.
I guess there used to be a hotel and saloon here, so there are some like ruins back in here. Pretty cool.
As we've come to expect of Wyoming, though, the terrain changes quickly, and it seems as if we're suddenly on another planet. It's not only the terrain that changes frequently, but also the weather. We had planned to spend the night camping out at elevation to lower the temps and make sleeping more comfortable, but as we approached, a massive storm was battering the mountain range that was our target. So we stopped short of the storm, quickly ate some dinner, and then continued up the mountain. As the sun started to set, we approached camp and ended up at one of our favorite campsites of the trip. The next day we woke up refreshed and ready to finish out the rest of part 3 of the BDR. As the prairie continued, some staples of Wyoming exposed themselves. If you're thinking of taking this trip, just know these few things. Gates. If you come across one and it's open, leave it open. If it's closed, go through it and then make sure to close it behind you. Cows. There are a lot of them, and they are in no rush to get out of your way. And then finally, antelopes. They're plentiful and they're fast. Really fast.
Is he good? Yeah, there's probably got it back on. Oh, changed the tire. So we're headed towards the end of section 3 of the BDR, and we just came across a car disabled on the side of the road. Looked like he needed a tire change. We stopped to see if we could help. We're getting ready to pull out now. Goes Patrick going around me. But so we just stopped to see if we could help, but he just about had the tire back on. So anyways, it seems like he's okay. So we're gonna keep hitting the road and keep going. It looks like maybe they're grading this road or something. So there is a big grader in front of us. So we are gonna go around him, I guess. And just see what we can figure out. There's also one coming towards us, so we probably ought to go pretty quick. Wink, wink. All right. So they're straightening out this road right now, it looks like.
Once we finished section 3 of the BDR, we were back on pavement for a little while, and surprise, surprise, we were in for more terrain changes. We found ourselves looking at some beautiful lakes in the middle of this almost desert-like prairie. And suddenly we came across all of this red rock that was absolutely beautiful. When you're on a super long trip like this 2-week trip that we were taking, time tends to move differently. When you don't have responsibilities, things take less time, sometimes they take longer, and days can feel really long. So we decided to stop for a quick lunch at a little state park that we found. It was right on a lake, and it was really beautiful, and it had some nice little picnic tables that we could sit at to eat. And after that, we headed towards section 4. Section 4 of the Wyoming BDR is a very, very remote section of this trail. It basically runs through the middle of another large prairie. You see mountains in the foreground ahead of you, but it seems like they just never move. You drive all day. I think we drove for 6 or 7 hours, and it didn't seem like we were really any closer to those mountains than when we started. However, while we were out here, there was actually some pretty fun wheeling, some off-camber stuff, some hills to climb, and we were basically riding on the ridge of a mountain the entire time, which was a ton of fun. And more than just the fun of driving it, was experiencing the sights.
So we just had a bit of a fun time. I kept hearing a noise, and it sounded like one of my latches on my rooftop tent was loose or something, but then I'm looking in my mirror and I see the whole rack shift. And we just got out and checked, and like 3 or 4 of the 5 channel nuts that hold it to the stock rack in the bed of the Frontier were like loose or out. And we've been on some crazy trails, so like I'm not blaming the rack at all. And it could have been partly install or something, but I mean, like I had it at the Moore Expo, we looked it over, everything looked good, but these trails have just been rocky back and forth. I mean, the whole vehicle just 3 days of just shifting back and forth. And so it seems that a couple of them have worked themselves out. So now we got a couple of them back in the channel and as tight as we could with some Allen wrenches. We're going to try and limp it out of here because we're about 20 miles out from town. I mean, we're in literally the middle of nowhere. So we're going to try and limp it out of the trail here, and then when we get to camp, hopefully somewhere near a town or something, we're going to try and get it back on all the way, but we'll see.
So we got the rack attached as good as we could to limp it to our next campsite, which turned out to be on top of some of the most beautiful red rocks I've ever camped on in my life. And once we got up there, we checked out the rack.
All right, so we just got to camp, and I'm going to try and sort out the self-disassembly of the extrusion rack. For the last 2 days straight, we've gone through just tons and tons of super aggressive, throwing the truck back and forth, bouncing around, all kinds of stuff, and it finally was just too much for the rack. It popped one of these out, and then another one was really loose, and then this whole entire side over here was pretty loose too, and you can see it eating into the top of the bed here. I actually noticed kind of like a clunking noise. I thought it was a rooftop tent latch at first, but then I was watching out my mirror and I actually saw the whole rack shift. And that's when I realized that the rack had come loose. So it does have an awning and a rooftop tent on it, so it's got a fair amount of weight on it too. But yeah, this stuff we've been on has been super ultra aggressive. So we did manage to, on the trail, get the back one and the middle one reattached, thanks to Hunter there, Rebel Outdoors. And then that one back there is kind of on. And this one here is kind of on, just on the bottom part of the lip. So I just took off these 2 bolts. I'm going to try and realign this stuff, get these back on there, and then hopefully we'll be good to go.
So after digging into it, we figured out that I don't believe that all the channel nuts were locked in when I first installed the rack, and that's what slowly caused them to fail one by one until most of them were loose, and we noticed that the rack was actually coming loose. We got everything tightened back down, and everything's been great ever since. Now, it was kind of funny. We were at this beautiful Red Rock camp, and there were cows on top of this cliff, and they seemed super comfortable. But we sat down, we ate a nice meal, and we enjoyed this beautiful campsite to end part 4 of the BDR. After leaving our Red Rock campsite, we decided to leave the BDR for a run west to the Tetons. This turned out to be one of the best decisions we made this entire trip. From the end of Section 4, it's about a 4-hour drive over to the Bridger Teton National Forest. You pass through some small towns, and the terrain continues to change frequently as we've seen throughout this entire trip.
Alright guys, so we just got into Bridger Teton National Forest. As you can see, the mountains back there, they are absolutely spectacular. It's amazing. We decided to leave part 4 of the BDR and come over here to the Tetons, just since we were so close, to kind of check them out. So we're going to spend the day here. We're going to dispersed camp outside of the park on a dispersed spot that we found tonight. We're going to try and get into camp a little early, but again, today I'm going to spend the day in here looking at the Tetons. So try and give you as much footage of that as I can.
Eventually, we arrived at the Craig Thomas Discovery and Visitor Center, which was packed full of interesting displays and historical info. However, the park was also packed with people, which we wanted to get away from, so we ended up heading out and finding our spot for the night a little bit early.
Alright guys, so it is Saturday. We left the BDR, we went to the Teton Mountains. It was beautiful. Beautiful backdrops and things like that. We just found a dispersed site, maybe, I'd say about 20 miles outside of Grand Tetons. And it's on this little creek here, so we kind of were getting a little stinky. So we decided to go ahead and take a bath in the creek. And it was really cold. Really, really cold. But refreshing. So now I feel very refreshed, like a new man. And we're going to go sit around a fire, have some dinner, and hang out. And then we're going to be hitting the road tomorrow to head back to Riverton, Wyoming. And when we get there, we'll be hopping back on the BDR and then continuing north on that. So more to come.
Unfortunately, shortly after we started the fire, it started to pour down rain. So we ended up sitting under a gazebo all night long and just kind of hanging out and then going to bed a little early. The next morning we woke up, luckily it was sunny out, and we hit the road headed back through the Shoshone National Forest towards Riverton, Wyoming. Our plan was to stop here, do some laundry, clean up the trucks, and then get back on Section 5 of the Wyoming BDR.
Clearing out the tent.
After everybody finished their laundry and we dried out our tents and awnings, we headed to a local restaurant called the Rusty Truck. Now this place was amazing, and honestly it was one of the best burgers and fries I've had anywhere. They also have an ice cream spot in here, so it was a great place to check out. So if you're ever near Riverton, Wyoming, check out the Rusty Truck.
I hate all this overthinking. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to...
After lunch, we all got gassed up, and Hunter wanted to refill his water tanks on his skinny guy camper on the back of his Ram. And he told us that it was a pretty funny situation because due to the angle of the filler neck or something, when you fill this thing up from a hose, it generally hits a point where it then will shoot water back out. So we all got quite a kick out of watching him fill this thing and be terrified constantly that he was going to get sprayed. So hope you enjoy.
So we're going to go a little bit, it's going to start gurgling, and then it's going to shoot out at us. And I'm going to hold on to this because last time I drove away from the driveway.
Yeah, that's bad.
And got into town and realized, wait, where's my cap at? Watch out, watch out. Maybe not.
Does it go worse than that?
Oh yeah, it goes like a lot worse. Like it shoots out.
Huh. All good.
Maybe not.
After everyone got filled up, we got back on the BDR. Shortly into Section 5, we hit the Madden area gas field in the Wind River Basin. This is an extremely large and deep natural gas deposit that was discovered in 1968. There's active drilling for natural gas, and the sign and warning lights are there for use during the release of hydrogen sulfide from the wells. The effects on humans can be really catastrophic and include acute respiratory failure, chest pain, neurological effects, eye irritation, and metabolic issues. Needless to say, we hustled through this section. Once you're through the deadly gas fields, though, you're in for some of the best views we've seen so far on the BDR. Enjoy.
We are dreaming.
we reluctantly left the beautiful cliffs, we then came to a largely abandoned ghost town. It turns out that this was an omen of what was to come, because what happened next was a lot scarier than any ghosts. As we headed into Section 6 of the BDR, the road got increasingly dusty. Visibility plummeted so much that we had to increase our following distance quite a bit. Unfortunately, that exacerbated some issues Hunter was already having from the back of the convoy with his comms.
So we just left the sort of those red rock canyons, beautiful, gorgeous sights. And we're driving down the gravel road, and we just had a little reminder of how quickly things can go bad. So we're driving down this gravel road. It's super dusty. So I've got my strobes going in the back. Everybody's got their flashers on. We're driving with tons of distance between all of us and staying on comms on the radios so that we can talk and make sure everybody knows what's going on. And Hunter, who's in the back there in the Ram, was way back behind me. And as we're coming around a turn, Patrick in the lead says, "Hey, there's a big semi-truck flying, get over." So Scott gets over in front of me, I get over, I'm on the shoulder, and this like livestock semi-truck comes flying around in the middle of the road and almost runs me off the road. Meanwhile, I'm frantically yelling at Hunter, "Hey, Hunter, there's a big truck coming, get off the road." And he's not replying. And so then we're sitting here and we're like, "Hunter, where are you, Hunter?" It turns out for some reason, he's kind of been having intermittent comms issues this whole time where he'll not hear us, or he'll say something and we'll reply and he won't hear our reply. So he said he's still having those comms issues. So he did not get hit, luckily for everyone, and he pulled up behind us, so we gave him a handheld. So where I'm going with this, though, is, you know, to kind of give you guys a real life example of why it's so important to be aware and cautious, to use, you know, safety measures like the strobe lights that I've got in the back, or at least your flashers and headlights and stuff in this dusty stuff. I'm going to turn the camera around here and show you just how dusty it is. It doesn't look as dusty on camera because the viewpoint is wider, but it's, I mean, it's crazy. I can barely see the truck in front of me. So the best thing to do is just leave a bunch of distance so that they can, you know, get out ahead of you and you have more time to react if they have to stop or something. And then that also lets the dust clear a little bit more so you can see more.
Once we solved Hunter's comms issue, we kept going further into Section 6. We stumbled across this beautiful canyon and we stopped to hop out to check it out.
Wow. How picturesque. Wow. So we're in Section 6 of the Wyoming BDR, and we just all of a sudden came to this amazing mountain range, just pushed up out of the ground. And so we all had to stop and take pictures for Instagram, of course. Like Hunter there. But I mean, it's just unbelievable, like how cool this is. It's super beautiful and just crazy to me as a flatlander. So just be driving down a gravel road and then you go around a corner and it's like, hi, there's a mountain, a huge giant mountain, and you're driving through it. It's really cool. So this is Section 6. If you want some beautiful views and some pretty smooth gravel roads, this is pretty nice.
As we continued through Section 6, we came across a lot of animals. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. We had big plans to camp on a scenic cliff overlooking a river that a subscriber had told me about, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But we did end up at a great campground anyways.
So many things that I left unsaid.
All right, so we just got to our camp. We are in Section 6 of the BDR, but we've kind of popped off it. We were looking for this cliffside campsite, but we hit a private property gate and couldn't go through. So now we found this little BLM land campground. There's no one here. Most of the sites look like no one's been here in a long time. And it is beautiful. Look, it's right on this water here. There's already a picnic table, fire pit. Somebody chopped us some firewood, which is pretty nice. And we're right on this creek. Pretty cool. woke up and we're heading back to finish up section 6. So far section 6 has been one of our favorites. It's beautiful. But in the last 20 minutes, we have come across a ton of cows on the road, sheep everywhere. And then we see like literally a train of cows going across the road. And then there's a guy on a four-wheeler coming behind it, and there's another guy in a pickup truck coming towards us. So we're like, man, this is a Wyoming traffic jam, right? But we talked to the guy that was in the truck. He's with the guy on the four-wheeler. They're ranchers. And I guess that there were big lightning storms and thunderstorms last night, which we kind of heard, but they just kind of rained on us a little bit and then stopped. But it separated some of the moms and the calves, so they're out here kind of rounding them all up and getting them all back together. So that was kind of cool. Also, the guy made a recommendation that we go to Ten Sleep, which is the end of section 6 and was our plan anyways. There's a brewery there and we were gonna have lunch there, and he said, yeah, absolutely do that, it's awesome. So just FYI, if you're running section 6 and you get to Ten Sleep at the end, there is a brewery there, and I'll let you know what we think of it once we eat at it, but from everybody we've talked to, it sounds like it's pretty awesome. So excited to check that out now with some more positive recommendations. So yeah, lots going on today, lots going on. This is just the beginning. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll see what happens.
I can almost feel you walking in the distance, but I know that it's not reality.
She said the problem, and I know this from our cows.
Yeah.
The problem is if the moms can't find their calves in this group, as soon as they move them, the mom will take off through the old pasture land.
To try and
even
find
though
them.
the baby's here somewhere, so they have to make sure they're paired up, the mom and the calf,
And
before
can they
they
tell
move them in.
that?
Yeah.
Just the way they interact, or?
Yep.
Huh.
So they have to make sure they're all paired up here, and then they can move them into the next section.
After airing up, petting the ranchers' dogs, and watching them round up the herd for a bit, we headed into Ten Sleep. We were excited for some cold beer and warm food at the Ten Sleep Brewing Company. The brewery was super cool. They've got a lot of live music that plays there, there's a ton of outdoor seating, and the atmosphere is great. The beer was good too. They don't have a ton to choose from food-wise, but the pizza was decent.
So we just got done having lunch at the Ten Sleep Brewing Company. We talked to the owner, super nice guy, and he gave us some heads up that sections 7 and 8 of the Wyoming BDR are pretty much impassable. A lot of the roads are closed and things. They've had, he said, about 5 times as much rain as they typically get this season. So he said that a lot of it is just impassable, that the roads that are normally like hard packed dirt and stuff are actually like muddy messes, which jives with what we heard from that other group earlier on day 2 of the BDR, section 2 of the BDR, where they said that they had come from up north and they'd gotten stuck multiple times and sunk their trucks up to the frame and things like that. So what we're thinking now is we're on part 7. We've taken pavement over here. This is the Petroglyphs. So right now we are at the Petroglyphs here, which is sort of along section 7 of the BDR. There's just a bunch of ancient carvings and stuff in this rock wall behind us. So we're gonna check that out, and then we're gonna hop on the road, and I think we're gonna kind of head east. I think our plan is to head towards sort of Mount Rushmore and the Dakotas, and then into the Badlands. But that's one of those things with these routes, right? Is if they get a bunch of weather, if they get some flash flooding, if something like that happens, then you may not be able to run the whole route. So one thing is that obviously we're in Wyoming in July. It's not exactly cool here. We just saw the Petroglyphs, which were really cool. But I got back into the truck, and we've only been out of the truck for like 10 or 15 minutes. I had these Reese's Thins in the truck, and they're Reese's Liquids now. So I guess I won't be eating those. Boo.
So we hopped in the vehicles and started heading east. We found a really pretty mountaintop campsite with a great view, and we decided just to stop early and rest a little bit and get a good night's sleep before heading into South Dakota the next day. next day we woke up well rested and ready to put down some miles. We left our mountaintop campsite and drove east with a goal of getting to Mount Rushmore. To cap off this epic trip, we all hung out by the campfire and enjoyed some drinks. As it got dark, a storm rolled in. What if I just look up at the sky? Oh, I got a tiny bit of white there. I need like really bright lightning bolts. Come on, lightning bolts, get brighter.
Like Thor style?
Yeah. Alright guys, so it is our final night of camping on this Wyoming BDR trip. We did leave Wyoming because the Bighorns were not passable. So we've come over, we saw Mount Rushmore today, it was awesome. And now we are camping on Black Hills National Forest BLM land. And it is going to be a heck of a storm tonight. It is thundering like crazy, lightning like crazy. And all the weather reports are saying we're about to get hit. So we are in our rooftop tents and we're going to see how this goes. But wish me luck. Might be hailing. I'm not sure. It is hailing. It's definitely hailing now. The next morning, we all woke up sad that the adventure was coming to an end, but excited to get back home to our families and friends. If you ever get the chance to take an epic, long overlanding trip like this, do it. Lifelong friendships were forged, we saw amazing and beautiful things that most people will never see, and we tested and improved our overlanding setups. Wyoming is a gem, and I can't wait to go back. Thanks for watching, and make sure to click the thumbs up and subscribe buttons for more all things overlanding.